I'm Rachel Osier-Lindley, and I'll be your host this morning for Talk at 10. Well, we have two guests in the studio I'm really excited to be speaking with today. Stanton Friedman. He is a world-famous UFO researcher, a nuclear physicist, and a lecturer on many UFO-related topics and more. Stanton, thank you so much for joining us today on the program.
It's my pleasure. They love me in Texas. I've been there a lot of times.
And of course, we're talking to you today because you are going to be a part of, not this weekend, but next weekend's UFO festival that'll be taking place in Presidio. And as part of the Presidio perspective on this, we have Brad Newton. He's the head of economic development and tourism for Presidio, and he'll be telling us more about the UFO festival as well. So welcome, Brad.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be back.
So first and foremost, before we get into talking to you, Stanton, about some of the very interesting research you do and the perspective you'll be bringing to the UFO conference, I want to hear more from Brad. Just let our listeners know why the city decided to do this and when the dates are.
Well, I guess you'd say by fate. We were probably the closest large city, along with Ojinaga, to this event that happened in 1974. And it's been covered, it seems like, by everyone in the world but us. And so if there was ever an event that needed a festival, this was it. So working with Noe Torres and all the rest of the guys, Stanton included, we decided to put on a festival. And we kind of bundled a lot of different things to do. And I'll tell you more about it later.
And this event that you're talking about specifically, this is kind of called Our Area's Roswell. And Stanton, you wrote an afterword to a book about it that recently was published. And I was hoping that you could just share with the listeners some of the details of this event, this 1974 event, and just tell us.
I haven't been down there to investigate it from Noe and his associates.
And that's the author of the book. It's Mexico's Roswell.
Yes, and I am the original civilian investigator of the New Mexican Roswell, if you will.
The original Roswell, yes.
Yes, I happen to be in the right place at the right time, and, UFO researchers have to be alert to surprises, things you don't expect to happen at the station of all things. Promoting my lecture at Louisiana State University, I was supposed to do 3 interviews, and I did 2, and so the station manager is talking to me and looking at his watch. He's nervous. And out of the blue, he says, the guy you ought to talk to is Jesse Marcel, and brilliant investigator that I am. I said, who's he? And when he was in the military. What?
Yeah.
Where does that come from? What do you know about him? Well, he lives over in Houma. That didn't tell me anything because I didn't know where Houma. The reporter showed up. I did the interview, had a great crowd that night in Louisiana State. Next day from the airport, I was there early. I thought, well, I ought to try calling this guy. So I called information in Houma. That's all I knew. And got a number and talked to Jesse, and he told me his story. And I want to correct a false impression. I've had nasty, noisy negativists say, I called Jesse. He told me his story. He was the base intelligence officer at Roswell, which was the only atomic bombing outfit in the world. They dropped the bombs of 509, twiddling their thumbs. And he told me his story. I followed it up later on. A colleague and I wound up pretty darn solid, and that story really got a lot of play. And when you deal with people like Major Marcel, and I found the guy, the base commander of the Air Force when he died of a massive heart attack at the Pentagon, mind you. So he wasn't a dink. But I also found Colonel, later General Dubose, who was the chief of staff to the head of the 8th Air Force over in Fort Worth, Texas. And I had made an effort to locate him. At least he had an unusual name, which made it easier. And he told me his story. And so you wind up talking to a lot of really good people.
And first, before we do talk about the story in this area, I want to say that you took this research that you did and
yes, and there's an update chapter in my book, Flying Saucers and Science. This is back in '78 when we got started, and who thought I would be still interested in that case umpteen years later? I'm usually at the Roswell Festival, and there will be another one next year, and I'll be there first week in July. And, there's a good example for Presidio. There have been just about 3 million visitors to the International UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell in the 20-some years that it's been around. And they come from all over. And, another thing Roswell has in common with Presidio, it's not on the way to anywhere. If you're there, it's because you want to be there. It's not an easy drive. Roswell is 200 miles from Albuquerque, Amarillo, and El Paso. So it proves the interest. People have come from all over the world. They are interested. They're serious. They sell a lot of books down there. At the festival, there are a number of professional people who speak, different people each year. I've been there most years. And so a town can really benefit. And there was at one point at which they thought about moving the museum west of town, and the town said, no, that anchors our Main Street. It's literally on Main Street. Mm-hmm. And so there is, for those who worry about what kind of people are going to show up for a thing about UFOs, the polls show most people believe in flying saucers. The greater the education, the more likely to believe in flying saucers. This is not a kooky subject. The only kooks involved are the nasty, noisy negativists, the debunkers who say anything but alien, and they'll try, if the first explanation doesn't work, well, let's try this one. And if that one doesn't work, let's try the next one. And I get a little upset as a nuclear physicist to have to be dealing with people whose basic rules are, don't bother me with the facts, my mind's made up. And what the public doesn't know, I'm not going to tell them. So I want to assuage any concern people have with a bunch of nuts showing up. It doesn't. I've been to a lot of festivals in a lot of places, and 700 lectures I've given in all 50 states and 10 Canadian provinces and 18 other countries. So I've had a pretty good opportunity to find out how people react to this subject. Now, I do try to lift the laughter curtain, the fear of ridicule that keeps people from talking about their sightings. And
so everybody's... So there is a fear. And just if you're just joining us, we're talking to Stanton Friedman. He's a nuclear physicist, also the original civilian investigator on the Roswell incident, which he put into his book "Crashed at Corona: The Definitive Study of the Roswell Incident." And he'll be here in 2 weeks as part of Presidio's very own UFO festival, trying to popularize an event that took place in Mexico in 1974. So, Stanton, you were telling us about some of the economic benefits that came to the town of Roswell by trying to popularize the story, and it really was captured by the imagination of folks that do believe in UFOs and are really interested in it. And they come out to the town, they visit the museum, and it has been a great hub of tourism for them. And this is something.
Yeah, initially. 20 years ago, there were people who said, you want us to be the UFO capital of the world? What are you, crazy? Well, once the people started coming, new motels have been built, new restaurants. They found that it was a popular subject. The business results were good. The museums, they have a couple of the Goddard Museum there, for example, and some art museums. They have all benefited from that. So it's not Cooksville, and yeah, I've been in convertibles waving at the kids alongside in the parade. It's fun, and I recommend it to anybody. And anybody coming to Presidio, there'll be a number of speakers, and I'm sure Brad will tell you more about those. And let me give you the two titles of my lectures. The first one on Friday, the 19th, at 6:30, is Man's Place in the Universe. And the second one, the next day at 6 o'clock, is Star Travel? Yes. And my point in both of these is that our understanding of where we fit in the scheme of things has changed drastically. There used to be a time when, believe it or not, mankind thought it was in the center of the universe. Everything revolved around the Earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets. We were it. And then old Copernicus came along and said, sorry, we go around the sun. And Jupiter has satellites that go around Jupiter, not around Earth.
And as you remember, that really did upset some people to find that out.
The book was banned by the church for 300 years. Yeah, it upset some people. And Giordano Bruno got burned at the stake for agreeing. Copernicus was clever. He died the year the book came out, so he didn't get burned at the stake. times have changed. Now we recognize it's a huge universe. It's a very old universe. And with the great Kepler satellite data coming out, it looks like there may be in our own galaxy, the Milky Way. And you realize until the 20s, we thought there was only one galaxy in the whole universe. Now we know there are billions and billions of them. So now we might expect that within our own galaxy, there might be, 10 billion other planets. We used to say there weren't any other planets. If there were, we would know about it. That man can be very arrogant and egotistical and so forth. If we don't know it, it's not true. I'll have to change what we know over the years.
So one
of my books. Well,
so you'll be lecturing on this on Friday and Saturday as part of the UFO Festival, and that's in Presidio next weekend, not this weekend, the next weekend. And I'm sorry I interrupted you, but you were mentioning
that's
another
right.
book of yours?
Well, just Science Was Wrong is a book that goes into a lot of examples. Kathleen Marden and I did that together. We each did 7 chapters, each based on an original bit of stupidity said by a very smart person.
Mm-hmm.
Space travel is utter bilge, said the British astronomer Royal back in 1956, the year before Sputnik went up. Last month, incidentally, the current British astronomer Royal said another stupid thing, that only kooks believe in UFOs. And he might talk to the people at NARCAP, National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalistic Phenomena, a fancy way of saying they had over 1,000 pilot sightings. And I fly a lot, and I don't think the pilots are kooks. There are a lot of astronomers who've had sightings. They don't talk about them very loudly, you understand, because of people like Lord Rees, who's the British Astronomer Royal. But so we have to put up with that kind of stuff. But I do a monthly column for the MUFON Journal, Mutual UFO Network Journal, and I have my favorite targets in the SETI community and in the astronomical community and others who make stupid things in the guise of being holier than thou. They know it can't be, therefore it isn't. Governments can't keep secrets, which is malarkey. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I bring to the subject, is I worked under security for 14 years. Governments can keep secrets, companies can keep secrets, people can keep secrets. No question about it. I've been to 20 archives. There's an incredible amount of stuff that's still classified. And it isn't automatically declassified after 10 or 20 years. Some of it's older than 75 years. You can't get access to it. So you don't look at it and they say, no, you can't see the rest of it. You don't get a look at it.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, we're talking with UFO researcher and nuclear physicist Stanton Friedman. He's talking to us about some of the economic resurgence that Roswell had after they successfully reinvented themselves as a UFO tourist destination. Also, just about some of the embarrassment that people have about believing in UFOs. And these are two things that you, Brad Newton, over there in Presidio as part of their economic and tourism development. You've been working on that as well, both trying to help create Presidio to become this tourist destination, to popularize this UFO event in Mexico, and also to kind of get that negative connotation that might exist among people that do believe in UFOs and would like the economic benefits of UFO tourism in the town.
Well, the Border Zone International UFO Festival, it has been really accepted in Presidio. The city council has endorsed it. The economic development folks, DCOP, has endorsed it and put their money where their mouth is. And so we're going to have our first UFO festival. Understand you can't call it annual until you have one. So
hopefully annual.
Yeah. Well, I if the website is any indication, UFOborderzone.com. Over the weekend, we passed 20,000 hits on the website.
That's great.
Also, I had a website for the city for 2 years and had about 2,000 hits, and we're well over 16,000 hits on the city website. So even before we've had the festival, it has really given a lot of recognition to the city of Presidio. And leave us not forget that we live in the Big Bend region of Texas, which is world famous for its beauty. And so this is a 2-for-1 deal. You get to come and hear world-class researchers such as Stanton and Noe and Dennis and all the rest of the guys. And, of course, you can find their bios on UFOborderzone.com. and we'll appreciate the extra hits. The lecture series will take place during the day, and then Friday evening we'll have stuff going on at the racetrack, a little get-together with the Due to the Dead folks, as well as the La Junta Foundation is going to be planting a bunch of trees, and just right down the street, the public is welcome to join them.
A very busy weekend in
It's going to be a very busy weekend, and if that's not enough, I really need to get this in. The Laredo Paranormal Research Society, Ishmael Cuellar is the head of that, is going to be here in Marfa at the Marfa Lights Observation Station, which is about 8 miles east on Highway 90, on Thursday night. And Stanton, I don't know if you know this or not, but we're stopping in to see them, and the public is invited to see them shoot a Class 3 blue laser at the UFO lights, and in past experiments, they're getting reactions out of the lights. And I said, well, Ishmael, they don't always show up. And he says, we have infrared stuff. We can see them anyway. So even if they're not charged up enough to see them, they can still hit it with the laser, and they were getting reaction that they actually light up whenever they get hit by the laser. So it's going to be very interesting to watch.
So that'll be the first. That'll be the first event of the Border Zone International UFO Festival, and that'll be outside of Marfa. That's Thursday the 18th in the evening.
Yes.
And what time will they be doing that from?
From dark until they get tired.
Okay, from dark until they get tired. So anyone in Marfa, head on out there Thursday the 18th and watch the Laredo Paranormal Research Society shoot lasers at the Marfa Lights.
Then also, they're also one of the first speakers on Friday. So I don't think we're going to get a lot of sleep. And then in conjunction with it, the Friday and Saturday night are also the hot nights for the Ornids meteor shower. So we're going to have meteor showers. We're going to have music. We're going to have world-class lecturers. And then we're also going to have a silent auction so we can make this thing free to the public to come in and hear the lecturers. And so we'll try to offset some of our costs with the silent auction. And then we also have the Presidio Passport Program, where you visit 12 businesses. We'll give you a little deal where you can get a stamp, bring it to us, and we'll give you a free UFOs Have No Borders shirt, and believe it on the back. So anyway, there's a way for you to earn a free T-shirt, but and chances are you're going to go to 12 businesses anyway, so you might as well participate while supplies last.
Where are the lectures, Brad?
The lectures will be at the Presidio Activity Center at 1400 East O'Reilly. Basically, you go through town and stay on the main street, O'Reilly Street, and just keep going, and you'll go up on top of the hill, and there it is.
And those will be going on all weekend, the 19th and the 20th. In Presidio. That's coming up next weekend. And you can find out more at the website. That's UFOBorderZone.com. Mm-hmm.
Also, after we get through Friday night, our Mexican counterparts are going to have an in Spanish with the Mexican UFO researchers at the Museum of the Revolution, which is very easily accessed. It's 4 blocks from the port of entry. On the main street, you can't get lost. So if you speak Spanish, or even if you don't, I'm sure there's somebody there that'll tell you what's going on. They'll have to do that for me. But anyway, we're really grateful to Mr. Rohana with the tourism department over there that he has put this together. It's modest, but it will be very interesting to hear the Mexican point of view. After all, this is where a lot of the activity is happening. But it's happening all around us every day. We're just not always out there to see it. So anyway, Rachel, thank you for having me today.
Oh, thank you for coming in. Thank you, Stanton. And we actually do we do have a bit more time.
Okay.
We've got about 5 more minutes. And I was hoping that we could really dive in, during this period of time into the 1974 event, in Mexico, with the reason why this is called, Mexico's Roswell. So, I was hoping, that either of you, I know you both know the story, could fill the listeners in, because I've got the book when we did our last conversation, Brad. So I've learned about it, but it's something that is probably new to most people in this area. I know people that have lived here for a very long time who've never heard of this incident. It's not very well publicized.
Stanton, do you
I'd rather you did it.
Okay. And I have it down pretty good on the thumbnail version. So here it goes. On August 25th, 1974. Corpus Christi radar picked up on an incoming object at 2,500 miles an hour at an altitude of about 75,000 feet, headed straight for Corpus Christi. 200 miles out, it turned and went up the Rio Grande. At the same time, there was a small airplane leaving the El Paso airport headed for Mexico City, a small private airplane. And when they got about 40 miles outside of Presidio, they collided. And it was called the Kiyami incident, the Chihuahuan incident, now the Mexican Roswell. So it's had many names, but it's still the same thing. And it's not to be confused with other events that happened around Del Rio or Laredo or those. It's Mexico's Roswell, and it happened 40 miles outside of Presidio and Ojinaga. The Mexicans thought that they were dealing with a plane crash, so they sent 24 soldiers out of Ojinaga to go to retrieve the wreckage. While they were out there, the spotter plane says, "Hey, there's something else over here." So they went over and they discovered a classic UFO saucer-shaped object, 15 foot in diameter, 5 foot high, 1,500 pounds. They loaded it on the truck and they headed back to town. And of course, the United States was watching all this because they saw the hot object coming in and go up the border, and then it disappeared off their radar. So through the use of satellites and radio, they were monitoring all this. Well, the convoy stopped in the middle of the desert for no apparent reason and didn't move. So they sent a jet plane out of Fort Bliss. He flew over and radioed back, "They're all dead." So the United States sent in a recovery team with the biological gear and that sort of thing. They gathered up all the wreckage because they didn't know what killed these soldiers. So they didn't want an unknown contaminant reaching the population. So they sterilized the area by blowing everything up. They did, however, take they had a Sea Stallion helicopter and 4 Hueys. And they brought the saucer back to around the Fort Davis area, and
so they say.
So they say, and we, as the book goes, they believe that they took it to the CDC to see what contaminant was on there, and that's where the story kind of goes away. However, Noe and Ruben will be here. They know all the intimate details, including a eyewitness, actually 2 eyewitnesses, that will be at the conference that actually saw the explosion over the mountain from the Hot Springs area.
And those are the authors of the book, and they will be speaking as part of the Border Zone UFO Festival as well.
Right. And the name of the book is Mexico's Roswell, and it's made by Noe Torres and Ruben Ugarte, and it is available on Amazon Books. And of course, they will have them at the festival, and you can get it autographed, as I'm sure Stanton won't mind autographing his books. So
right.
All the authors will have their wares, and the great thing about it is you can come up and visit with them, and so it's really an honor to get to meet these people. I had by the way, I had a great time in Roswell, Stanton. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Stanton. And I actually,
my pleasure.
In junior high, I did a report for our curriculum fair. We were supposed to pick a topic that we were interested on and do a report on it. And I did the Roswell incident as my report in 7th grade.
Wow!
And I actually did I read Crash at Corona, and I took some stuff from it. And so I'm familiar with your work. So thank you so much for talking with me, and I appreciate it. It was an interest of mine as a young child.
Well, I hope you still have the interest.
I do still have the interest. I do still have the interest. Of course I do. And thank you so much for talking with us about your work on the Roswell incident. And I'm sure that you'll provide the Big Bend area people that go to the Border Zone UFO Festival with a lot of interesting information about your very long career looking into UFOs and researching it, and how your education as a nuclear physicist really informs your research and your conclusions that you've drawn. So thank you so much for talking with us.
My pleasure.
And
I'm looking forward to being there.
Oh yeah, no, it will. I'm sure it will be great. We've been talking with Stanton Friedman, a UFO researcher and nuclear physicist, along with Brad Newton of the city of Presidio. He does their economic and tourism development about the Border Zone UFO Festival, and that is going on next weekend, the 19th and the 20th in Presidio. And also there are other events as well across the border, as you mentioned, Brad. And I'm really excited about this new element that you mentioned as well for the people in Marfa. There'll be the Laredo Paranormal Research Society group.
The Laredo Paranormal Research Society.
Okay, and they'll be shooting lasers at the Marfa Lights viewing station Thursday night. That's the 18th. So next Thursday. So if you are living in town and or visiting town and wanted to go out to the Marfa Lights viewing area, it'll be probably a pretty interesting show with some folks from there.
I think it will, and be very, very. It's something that you don't see every day. And of course, if you see big blue lights going across the sky, it's us.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Stanton, and thank you so much, Brad. And that's Border Zone, UFOBorderZone.com for more information.
Thank you very much and I appreciate the support of Marfa Public Radio in our endeavors, and I can't thank you enough.
Oh, well, we love having you on to talk about what's going on in Presidio. So thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
I'm Rachel Oger Lindley, and this has been Talk at 10. Thanks for tuning in this morning.